Hey guys, it is Carl Brown here with my brother Ted, and we are here with another Too Much Gain podcast. This one we're going to answer viewer questions. So I had a feeling there'd be a lot of twin questions, and
yeah, so maybe we'll get them all answered in just one.
Yeah, I doubt that. I doubt that. But
all right, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions here, so we can kind of be scrolling through them and just kind of, he's going to be scrolling, I'm going to be scrolling, we're going to kind of choose. All right, so the first one says, being identical twins, how did it affect you in the music industry and your fellow bands? Did it make you guys stand out, and what difficulties did that bring?
I think it, for like advertising, anybody that wanted to work with us, they were sort of intrigued by the twin thing.
Yeah.
But as far as like a dynamic inside of the band, even though we were kind of all, in the bands we've been in, we were sort of the
leaders of the band.
Yeah, I guess you could say leaders.
We had those things where we had bands, especially in LA, our main band in LA, where a kind of big time producer, I'm not gonna say his name, but he tried to take us away from our band. He just wanted to work with me and Ted, so he kind of wanted us to kick all of our buddies out of the band and just work and we didn't go for it.
But it's like we were mainly like the writers of the original bands. We wrote the music together, and sort of any other acts we were in, we're sort of the main idea people, I guess. But that can also always create a little bit of a wedge. And it's been like our entire life. It's like even in friends in our lives and our family, it's like it's sort of a wedge, even though we don't try to bring it on. It's just they see the twins and the twins are like a unit, and it's like
everybody else is kind of on the outside a little bit.
Yeah. But. So, all right. So we got one here. Can you tell us the stages of a regular guitar learner and sharing your journey too?
So this is just going to be for me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't play guitar.
By the way, Ted does not play guitar.
Do not play guitar.
Get this out there. I know we have to say
I can slay
a G
chord.
Chord.
Every rose has a thorn.
Okay.
So we should probably do that.
Which means doesn't mean you can play guitar if you do that. So he does not play guitar. But anyway, stages of learning guitar are different for everybody because not everybody tries to get to the same thing. Some people just want to play on their porch and strum a few songs. And some people want to take it more seriously. And then those people have, depending on what they want to do with it, if they want to be like a virtuoso player that's developed their ear or whatever and all that stuff, which most players don't get to that point. It's a lot of stages. Usually starting out learning songs, and then you start trying to, even though I did a very little bit, but I was more of a really technique-oriented player even as a kid. And that's all I would practice. Anyway, so when you get more serious about it and developing your technical chops, you're going to work on a lot of technique work. And then it's going to get in. Generally, this is what I see. After that, people start getting into the theory and the fretboard knowledge. And then at the very end of the road, for some reason, they wait to the very end to start developing their ear, even though that should be the first thing you work on because music's a hearing art. But that's usually the road I see people take, but really generally depends on the player. Most players don't ever go through any of those stages. They just not interested in putting the work in. All right, so another question says, if you could go back in time and see one person play live, who would it be? One person or a band? I guess it probably means a band.
Man, this is always such a hard question this has always been a really hard one with me. Because you're going to say the Beatles. But then I guess we've never really had the opportunity.
I've seen half the Beatles play live.
Yeah, I've seen half the Beatles. I've seen McCartney twice. I've been backstage at Ringo Starr. That was amazing. But Pink Floyd.
Yeah, so for me, a band that the two main members at least are still alive and could go back out onto the road and I have never seen perform live would be Pink Floyd. That's what I want to see. Yeah. And the only other band that I can think of that I'm a huge fan of that I've not seen play live ever, and I want to see play live is Radiohead.
Which is crazy that we haven't seen Radiohead. Although in LA, their tickets just go so quickly.
But
they don't like to play huge venues.
Do they tour anymore? I don't think they're touring.
They haven't toured in a long time.
Yeah, so I'm sure they'll tour again sometime, and if they do...
But I've never seen Michael Jackson. Who wouldn't want to...
Oh, I'd love to see
pretty crazy to see Michael Jackson play.
All right, for Ted, who are your favorite drummers and why? And were you aware of the clause in the Twin Blood contract stating that you had to edit all of Carl's videos?
No, I didn't see that coming in the future. But my favorite drummers all time, pretty quickly,
Well, one
this is the only album? I probably hate listening to it after a few days.
After like a week, I'd be like...
But I got to choose one. Now, we had a video coming up when we just went through... We'll talk about that. You'll see about that in the next video. How difficult it is to go through your favorite albums, and you all of a sudden realize how many there are.
For me, it would be you could pretty much pick any Sigur Rós album, and I would pick that. I'd be fine. Any Sigur Rós.
The man said one album.
Well, I said I'm going to let the man pick. You know what? I tell you what. We'll do either Sigur Rós Brackets album or Valtari.
Yeah, I was gonna almost say Valtari, but oh my gosh.
And the new one's really awesome too. So I don't know. Sigur Rós to me is the only band that's never played a wrong note ever.
Yeah, but God, if I try to get someone into Sigur Rós, I give them Tack. Yeah, because it's the one that's got all the songs are kind of up. They're all their individual pieces. None of them are like crazy long, but it totally shows who Sigur Rós is. But yeah, so I would almost say, but if you're just going to be in like, I know it's a very, very chill album, but yeah, Valtar is just
So we're both a Sigur Rós album.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a nice question. What were your what were you guys going to do if your music careers didn't work out? Was it all or nothing, or did you have a backup plan?
What were we going to do? We're probably going to start doing podcasts on YouTube if it didn't work out.
This is a direct result of our music career not working out.
I mean, everything's still an open. I guess different people have different realms of success, and we've been through different things, or we've had chances to like have record deals back in the day, but we just kept shifting our thing. I remember like in the '90s, as soon as we got to like a level, we wanted to not be as heavy. We were like very heavy because we have a very like a melodic sense about us. We like melodic music, and then that kind of ushered in a move to LA. And then that kind of ushered in like the music industry in itself sort of kind of imploding and not being where you wanted it as far as like all the downloading started. So, and then we started again, we start trying to make music that you're not really inspired. You think this is what's going to work, But I think now we still have a lot of like success really now is can you make something that means something to you and that you're proud of, and that's really success in the music industry. Music in general. And I think there's always, no matter where you're at in life, that's still there. You can still have that. You can still pull that off.
So I think there's a general amount of like popular success that YouTube was not a thing when we were kids, and now I've got a certain amount of people, I know because people run up to me on the street all the time, and I know there's a certain amount of popular success I have on YouTube, but it's not with my own music, and I think that that's another stage that I'm going to go to in life, and I still think it's there for the taking, and that me and you are still going to do together.
And that music is coming; it will come.
But the world's different. Like, people make it in different ways now. I feel like my music hasn't made it yet, but this YouTube thing that we've now have gotten to this level, could be a good springboard to finally getting to
Yeah,
that.
but it's also at the same time, it's like if you just sort of realize, you don't, need sort of these things out of music, sort of like financial, requirements need to come from your original music. That sort of opens up a world that you can.
Yeah,
just be
exactly.
Like,
if I don't need
do
to, if I don't need my music that I make to make me a single dime,
so you
that's
intentionally make music that will not.
I will intentionally make
dime,
music that nobody will listen to. No, it was true. I think that's the best music, and when that's a good thing now is like when I make my own music, I don't worry about making money off of it. Yeah, and that's awesome.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's like,
and it's all because of the YouTube thing,
and it's all from our experiences in the music industry. Where, I remember leaving some of these meetings going, I hate this music. I know I wrote it, but I can't. I don't want to listen. This is not the type of music I want to make. And you feel like you're just dumbing everything down.
Yeah,
to like whatever.
Do you have any original music? I got a ton of original music.
Yeah, we do, but
I could let you hear it, and it's just
very
cringeworthy to me. But
so here's a good one. So, what are your opinions on a formal education in music?
My only opinion would be: do you want to teach music at a university level, or pretty much, if that's what you want to do, then you're going to have to do a formal education. Other than that, for most people, it's a complete waste of money. Now, you can learn some certain things that, I think the thing with music school is more about the connections you make.
That's how we were back in the day. Like we had our eyes on Berklee when we were teenagers.
I come at this. I went to music school briefly, okay? And I also have a lot of friends who have doctorates in music, okay? And some of them are in their 40s, some of them are over 50, and still have over a couple $100,000 in debt from student debt from this stuff. So at least if you're a student in America, you're going to pay out the nose for your education, and then you have a liberal arts degree, which you're most likely not going to be able to make it enough money to pay off, ever be financially stable the rest of your life. It's just not a good idea when those exact same books that you use when you're in your classes, you can buy off of Amazon.
Like
you can educate yourself, and the resources now, especially with online and YouTube, the courses that are out there are, for me, I went to music school briefly. I learned a lot more by studying privately with select teachers, or just controlling it my own way. And then if you have a thirst for knowledge, you can learn it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a university setting. Now, if you have a thirst to have a degree, obviously you have to go there. But it's just the knowledge that you want. The one thing that music school can't give you is connections.
Yeah, but also, besides the connections, like what connections you want to. I remember that back in the day, we were like, oh, we'll be like Dream Theater. We'll go to Berklee and we'll form a band in Berklee, but eventually, but that you're kind of talking about the end game of, okay, you got a degree. What can you do with a degree? But the actual process of it is the problem I always had with. Like, I don't think that having a classroom of like 30 or 40 people teaching an art form, that you're going to end up now. There's a lot of like smoky people that went to like Berklee that I know like currently that went to Berklee and stuff and are very individual players and are very good. But I could just never get my head around that how is this going to work, and especially some of the schools that they kind of do the whole like, remember like your School of the Arts, where they're like that they basically strip you down to like nothing to start. Like you basically treat you like a beginner, which is just nonsense to me.
You just gotta, if you're planning on going to music school, get a degree to learn music, which is like a really difficult field to make a living in, even if you have a degree. So here's the thing: anybody, if you want to be a successful musician, nobody cares if you have a degree. Not a single person cares about your degree.
Steve I, because he went to Berklee.
Steve I didn't finish Berklee. I think Steve I went to Berklee for like a year and a half. So a lot of guys, Bertucci didn't finish Berklee, I believe. There's a lot of guys who went there and never finished. It's the degree doesn't matter. Nobody cares about your degree. You have to weigh the pros and cons. Is this the amount of money?
I mean, you think you're going to fall back, like, which it is a fallback to. I mean, we've both fallen back on it. Like if you're a music career, you start teaching, and we've both been teaching for decades.
But do you know how many few jobs there are for like music professors and like that actually make any money in like real schools? The same friends I have, they teach like privately, and they're trying to get university degrees. They have doctorates, and they're brilliant, and they're in the 50s, and they're in massive debt, and they can't figure out a way to get a consistent job at a university. Somebody's going to die off, and these
So it
people like
basically
hold on to
depends-
these jobs
yeah.
till they're 95 years old. So it's like, it's just not, for me, pros and cons. If you like music, you can self-educate, and you can have the same knowledge or skill level than somebody who goes to the music school without the debt, without the time and the expense, and that's the
I just feel like they can't teach you how to be creative and unique. That's all from the inside. You know, I'm not saying you can't learn things from a music school. You can learn things from so many places. You can learn a lot from going on the road with your band.
It's valuable to study music. I think it's very valuable to learn music,
Extremely
develop
valuable,
your ear. I'm not one of those guys. I just think you don't have to go to a music. You don't get a higher education by going to a university.
Yeah, like when we left.
Like I said, the same books are available on Amazon.
Yeah, when we decided to,
far less
even like way back when, they're like pre-YouTube and all that stuff. When we decided not to go to Berkeley, we were both practicing like 10 hours a day. We were like, finding the secrets, the hard way. And that's how you do it. You're not going to get any better. And I do think like a lot of this, I hate to stay on this, like a lot of these, especially these days when they do all this different types of like online learning, it's not, I don't know. Sometimes you just feel like they're not really, is the product they're giving you really, and
it's not.
Really what they're
let's double the price
as.
every year and then lower the education level. It's just a joke. So here's a question. Do you often get to see some of the guitarists, including myself, who learn from your killer tutorials? I imagine it's a great feeling to see somebody benefit from your lessons. I do all the time. Even Ted meets these people.
Yeah, I meet them too, and they don't believe that I'm not him. And, they get sort of offended. Like, no, I'm
blowing you off right now. I was like, yeah, man, I'm not him. Like,
always back it up. I edit all the videos. He's like, okay, great.
You don't get it.
Like, what are you saying?
No, it's always really cool when somebody comes up to you and just lets you know how beneficial you have been to them and stuff like that. And I've never met a troll in person ever, which is
the man can barely walk around Nam.
True. All right, so the next one we have here is being that you two are both mostly into rock and metal, what was your take on grunge? And did it become an issue regarding gigs, or did you both just adapt?
Yeah, I think obviously I did like Nirvana when they came out, and like Pearl Jam when they come out. I love, all the bands are lopped in with it. Your Alice in Chains, which are considered grunge, but
and they actually predate.
I mean, all these bands sound so much different, like Soundgarden.
People forget Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were on MTV well before Nirvana was.
Yeah. So, but for that, I think we have the same take on this. It wasn't so much grunge because there's a lot of good music, and like the first wave of grunge, I guess you can say. It's basically what it ushered in the second half of the 90s. What came in, what types of bands started coming
Presidents of the United States.
Yeah, that kind of stuff that I just could not get into whatsoever. And it felt like they took some of the stripped down nature of grunge, or some grunge, and some of them were, very involved songs. Like, Smashing Pumpkins kept doing really cool stuff in the later 90s. And other bands.
Radiohead was just absolutely
brilliant.
brilliant.
Radiohead, like, we don't consider Radiohead a grunge band.
But it comes from that, like their first album, a lot of people, or it's probably on the radio because of the grunge thing, and then they just became this completely different band that was just very sophisticated and just incredible.
Yeah. So basically, the biggest problem I would have, it's not so much ending hair metal, because I think hair metal was kind of working its way out anyway. It was getting a little obnoxious, and that those genres are always, something like that is always going to find a way to, people just get like tired of it. But there are some great artists in that genre that will always be that way. But yeah, it was basically what it ushered in. I felt like the last half of the 90s, when you're in the rock spectrum, was just super weak. I think that's something, and it kind of came in, it bled into the 2000s, and then the downloading starting, and it's hard to kind of pick a lot of, rock bands that I'll pick from that era that are sort of my that I'll even listen to today. Here's a question. What are some of your most disappointing album releases?
Oh my. So this is obviously going to be of bands that I really, really like.
Yeah, and they're backing up something incredible, and like
they're backing up something incredible. It's something.
So it's not the first one that always sticks in my mind. I think one of our favorite records ever, both of us, is Three Sides to Every Story, Extreme, and their album, their follow up to that, Waiting for the Punchline. I was really disappointed in that record. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, you can't. I think we talked about it with a Metallica. You know, how often can you just making great music on top of it, and like that. You know, and what Three Sides is, I think, is the most underrated, one of the most underrated. Like when you talk about extreme, like no
people
one
talk
talks
about
that
Graffiti,
record.
which rightfully Porno Graffiti is one of the greatest rock riff albums of all time.
But I mean, that part of like extreme, for me at least, the part about extreme that I like the last half of that record is some of the best music ever made. And then to follow it up with Waiting for the Punchline.
Three Sides to every story. Yeah.
Yeah. It just wasn't my thing.
For me, disappointing album releases. This is like really. I don't know.
I would say that
Sex and Religion.
Sex and Religion. I mean, they're coming off Passion and Warfare.
Yeah, well, that's like you're coming off Passion and Warfare too. But I think it mostly we didn't know who Devin was at the time, and we ended up becoming massive Devin Townsend fans after he left Steve Vai, or he was done with that project.
And then Terry Bozzio was the
your
drummer.
favorite drummer.
I know. I was like, oh my God, what's
my favorite
here?
guitar player.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God. And then the publicity stills. I mean, Vai was just looked killer. And I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be.
But you're
amazing.
basically coming off like the most magical album that just incredible, and I guess there's no win situation, but it just kind of changed. I mean, I liked Alien Love Secrets. I love that one that came out later on. But yeah, it's
I gotta say, my opinion about Steve Vai. Steve Vai, you will not find a bigger Steve Vai fan on this entire planet. This entire room is
then both of us. I mean, we both
covered with hand-drawn sheet music that he personally did. I have track sheets and notes he's taken. I have clothing of his hanging up downstairs. Massive Steve Vai fan. Okay. The vocal songs that he does on his album, those songs to me, I'm sure it means a lot to Steve, but to me it feels like when Steve can express himself on a guitar melodically, what he does is just so far like just beyond like what any guitar player could ever achieve. But when he tries to do it with right vocal melodies and all that stuff around it, I feel like it's I don't know how to put it. It's just kind of, it doesn't have that fire to it. It doesn't have that flair to it. It doesn't have that.
Rescue Me or Bury Me is a great
it's
song.
not as inspired.
I mean,
It doesn't feel as inspired.
It's not saying they're not great songs. Rescue Me or Bury Me.
Yeah, but Rescue Me or Bury Me is like a great little acoustic intro, and then kind of like a ho-hum verse and a chorus, and then one of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded. But it's the guitar. I mean, that's like when you just let him go on the guitar, it's magic every time.
It's hard to compete with it.
And so when he tries to do it with like a vocal melody, I just don't feel like it. I don't know. It kind of feels to me. I also do it too. Same thing with Alan Holdsworth music. So Alan Holdsworth's brilliant.
Yeah.
His vocal songs are cringe. Yeah. You can't hear one vocal song. I think is. I'm drawing a blank right now. His biggest vocal track. Yeah, Endomorph. That's the only one I actually halfway like. And then everything else, but is like...
I felt like a lot of that, he's coming out of the Fusion era, and he felt like he had to have that element in his band.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's not my favorite part of Alan Holdsworth. You know, the best album, my favorite album is 16 Men Obtain, which is just... there's no vocals on it whatsoever. But, yeah, I would definitely say that. If you could master any other instrument, what would it be?
I'd like to first master guitar.
Yeah, let's start with that one.
Struggling. I would say piano.
Yeah, me too. So that's why I play piano.
Well. Piano is the ultimate instrument
piano
to compose music on.
That's where all my practice is these days, just piano.
Can there be at least one drum lesson with Ted of his favorite song, of course? Now, we actually talked about a long time ago about making a drum lesson channel.
Vegas days.
But those videos are a bitch.
Yeah, so like we basically, that was the idea. Carl first started Guitar Lessons 365. And we're like, okay, then we're going to do a Drum Lessons 365. And it was right when we had moved to Vegas. And I remember setting up and doing a lot of test stuff for it, test shots. And it's just a lot more production to get a good sound on a drum kit and get that whole thing done. And then you start realizing that there are 50 guitar players for every drummer. So the market is a lot bigger for guitar. And we would also have to hire somebody else to come in and edit videos and do all that type of stuff because we would be busy producing videos. And at those days, I was actually editing all of our band promos. So we just kind of segued it like this would be a better idea if you start producing the material and, editing and producing, and therefore Carl could just make guitar lessons and we could kind of concentrate on one thing and make it that way. We didn't have to bring anybody else in, and we were still doing that a decade later.
I had been doing the channel for about 4 years, and when and it was reasonably successful. Actually, there's 2 channels, and then you can probably tell there was no editing in the early videos. It's just one.
Yeah, you can tell when it goes to 3 camera shots and you actually see Carl's face for the first time. You can tell when I came.
And it goes, the clips going out, they actually change. When I used to just set up a camera for my pick hand and a camera here, set them in front of me, and then it was one take, one shot for the entire video, warts and all and everything. So it wasn't until he came on board. Whenever you see the 3 camera shot, that's when he came on board. And then, so that's, so basically we were thinking about doing the drum stuff. Logistically, it was a lot harder to do, and it has a lot smaller audience. So we were like, let's go ahead and do something that we already have going pretty well. Yeah. And then let's just make this better.
And you also don't have to bring anybody else in.
Then the production quality ramped up quite a bit, and the amount of stuff I could put out was a lot better because I didn't have to worry about anything else besides the guitar stuff.
Okay, so here's one. If you couldn't pursue careers tied to music and what you're doing now, what types of careers do you think you would have pursued?
I would have done something with animals. I'm not sure what it. Everybody's like, so you would have been a veterinarian. I wouldn't have been a veterinarian because it's just a really sad job. But I would do something with animals.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid always thinking animals, but it would have been obviously something sports. If I had like,
okay, I'm gonna take that back. I would be a golfer.
Yeah, it would have been like not say that pursued, but would have been successful. Probably not so much. But golf is sort of like that same thing to like music. That I mean, I used to when I was way back in the teen days, picking up golf balls at a golf course at a driving range, and there's a lot of guys, and they were making a good amount of money. They weren't good enough to play on the PGA Tour, but they can make good money.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is about if you're a professional athlete, the great thing about being a professional athlete versus being a professional musician is when your professional athletics are merit based.
Yeah,
it's if you are the best tennis player in the world, you are paid as if you are the best tennis player in the world. There is nobody's opinion about it like it is in music. Music,
like Ashley Simpson can't come in and steal your Wimbledon title
because her sister plays as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like,
can't happen, but work. That's just the way it is.
So here's a question that actually has something to do with what we just said. My question for Ted is, do you play golf like Carl, or are you into other sports?
Yeah, I think we both play golf. That's the only sport.
That's our main hobby.
Yeah, that's
both of ours main hobby.
Other sports, I don't like play any other sports, but we both love sports.
We love watching sports. We're both huge hockey fans, Vegas Golden Knights. We're both big Carolina Panthers football fans. We're both big golf watchers. We love watching golf.
I mean, skiing's fun and everything, but golf is the only thing that we'll both do.
Yeah. At a very, very high level. Next question. We know you're great at playing your instruments, but how good are you at cooking? More importantly, Carl, does Chaplin approve? Well, Chaplin gets Chaplin gets his food delivered every single week. Fresh food delivered, made for him specifically. So he has a very high-end diet. So he enjoys it quite a bit. So for me, I can't cook. I always tell people the only thing I'm actually addicted to in this world is DoorDash. It's a more recent addiction, and it's like, I don't know. It's just it's a great way to make a burrito cost $75.
Yeah,
it's an expensive addiction, but I'm lazy in the evening. I take care of Chaplin, and I'm like, I can just eat anything I want. They'll just bring it right to my door. Yeah. So I do it almost every night, and it's not.
I can make a pretty good pasta. Besides that, don't really have any specialties and stuff. So
I can make stuff if I want to, but I just like it's one of those things where it's always the same thing. I get tired of it, so I'm just like
I don't not enjoy doing it. I mean, sometimes, but some kind of get an idea for something and doing something, but it's not high on my list of things that I like. Okay, so how do you deal with bad days on guitar or any instrument? Do you have them, and how often do they happen? I'm having a trouble once in a while, and it really messes me up in my confidence.
I have them constantly, and
If you're asking something of yourself, you're going to have them all the time, and you're a human being.
and you try to figure out why. I think a lot of it comes down to how you sleep at night, and people don't pay attention to a lot of that. They don't realize that if you don't get to bed at a certain time, and if you're like, if you're having drinks before you go to bed and everything, all this stuff affects your sleep. I wear a sleep tracker at night now, and I'm kind of obsessed with quality of sleep kind of thing. And I could see a huge difference. Like if I'm like, I just stayed up a little late, I was watching something or whatever, and I just kind of get lazy at night, and I can see, first of all, I can see my sleep numbers are way off, and then the whole morning, which is usually when I work on music and practice a lot, it's just never a good session.
Yeah, it's always
just not into
mental with me. If I feel like I'm not playing well, or which can also like log into like, all right, I'm not really into it today or something, and I can always tell it's my mind. I'm not focused to be able to take myself to a level that I need to get to be feel like I'm getting somewhere. And so that's when the bad day, and they can get you grumpier than all get out. Like if I feel like I didn't play it well that day, I mean, like my wife will know it, but I can, you got to eventually remember, like I was a huge fan of Terry Bozzio, and he was talking about sort of like the learning process and everything that you go through as a musician, and how you'll get something and you'll come back and it won't be there anymore, and you you feel like I had something and you lost it. And he's basically trying to keep people motivated. And I would say this all the time to my students, like you just have to trust the process. You have to, like, you're only going to be a really advanced or a instrumentalist if you absolutely love doing it.
You're consistent. It takes a while for those neural pathways to develop. It's all short-term memory for a while.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can lose very quickly.
But just don't forget that you are, like, if I ever, like, I remember in my younger days, if I had a bad day, I'd always remember the time when I was a little kid and I wanted a drum set.
Yeah.
And I didn't have one. But it kind of puts it all in perspective that you're just having
if you feel like it's just a grind, but you start trying to find that excitement from when you.
And also, like in those days, I used to practice. We used to practice like 10 hours a day. I would sometimes feel, a lot of times, I mean, like I would never do that today because it just doesn't work that way. I mean, I was like a power practicer, and it's just your brain is not absorbing. I just felt like I'm gonna push it to this level. But like if you step away, like you went on a little vacation with your family or something, you would come back, and it's almost like you just have this different approach to your instrument. It's kind of gets on deeper levels, but a lot of it could be like burnout, and it's just like concentration and focus, and that's where for me, that's usually when I see what's happening.
All right, next question here. Let me see. Have you guys ever dated anybody that played the same instrument that you did?
No.
I've never dated a drummer, Ted. Come on.
I've never dated a musician. Have I dated a musician?
No. I've never dated a woman that plays guitar ever. Maybe that's the key. Maybe that's the key to me finding the one is they should play guitar. As long as they're not better than me, because that'd be a lot of fun if they were better than me. Mm-hmm. That would be very inspiring, I think. I actually have the only musician I've ever dated was this French concert pianist. I won't say her name, but it was that was interesting. But you would think that would be like ideal, but it didn't work out. But anyway, it was. But no, maybe that would happen next. We'll see. But right now, as of yet, no. Rick asks, has any dogs that you guys have had ever confused you for the other?
No, I don't think that's really possible.
See, dogs are much more intelligent than human beings are. We've had all of our family members have confused us. Or we've had girlfriends confuse us. We've had lots of people confuse us. Dogs never. No. So the moral of the story here, dogs are a miracle, and they never do anything wrong. So, there you go. Who would you put as your Mount Rushmore of guitarists? Your top 4 favorite guitarists?
Top 4 favorite. Okay, so pretty quick, pretty easy.
From a drummer's perspective.
Yeah, from
It's
a
probably going to be very close to mine anyway.
yeah, from a drummer's perspective, Alan Holdsworth, Steve Vai, David Gilmour, and Yancey from Sigur Rós, which you were probably not even expecting that, but I just like, I mean, he obviously, if you guys know Sigur Rós, a lot of you probably do not.
There's a picture of me and Yancey right there on the wall.
He does a lot. He plays it with a bow. He does a lot of different types of stuff with it, but he's my favorite musician who's ever lived.
Yeah, me too.
So, and that's his main instrument, so I got to say Yancey.
Well, for Yancey, I've never even tried to attempt to play any of his music, even though he's my favorite musician. I would say Alan Holdsworth, Steve Vai. Who else did you say?
David
Gilmour. Yeah, I put him too. So my fourth. That's tough for me because I'm a massive Eric Johnson fan, and I'm also a massive Nuda Bencourt fan. I'm a massive Eddie Van Halen fan. Mm. So those are all three guys that it's really tough. Now, the guy who's my favorite guitar player now is Alan Holdsworth as an adult. The favorite guitar player from the age of nothing to mid-40s was Steve Vai. So those have to be there. And David Gilmour is just, magic too. So it's really hard for that fourth spot. It's going to be one of those three guys. Hey, Carl, did the left-hand guitar playing cure the problems you were having with your picking hand /arm/wrist? Any issues on that front currently? So that was this thing that had been going on a while. And I tried to play lefty to kind of like help things last year. And then I switched to piano. And then I just kind of switched to, because I had been having these issues for a while. And I started having more issues, and actually this arm, when I was practicing, everything was locking up, and it's been 7 years of like every kind of therapy you can have and just trying to figure out what's going on. And it wasn't until I solved it this year, I just got back into actually strength training again. And doing,
pumps the iron.
Yeah, just getting back into, not going to physical therapists and all this stuff, and they give you a bunch of exercises that your grandmother should be doing. Just really just started working out heavy again. And which is the only reason I didn't is because the physical therapist was like, you need to do these lighter stuff. And basically my guitar playing, I played so much guitar that your body's got to be certain strength to be able to be resilient against that, I guess, especially as you get older.
You're just kind of leaning over.
Yeah, so like this, you're basically setting your stone. So that's a world, all you guitar players or any instrumentalists out there, keep your body in shape, like really good shape, because that's what's going to make you be able to play without pain. You're just going to make your body stronger and more resilient to injury and the chronic injuries that you get by playing instruments for decades after decades after decades. And that's what it was. And now we're a year and a half, over a year since I started that little LT challenge and I'm abandoning it. My hands, I would say 95% better. And all the pain in my shoulders and the arms and stuff, gone. So and it's just because I work out really heavy now, and that's pretty much it. So just do your strength training, people, men and women, and that's what's going to keep you healthy. All right, if you had an opportunity to play in any band, which band or bands would it be? So mine would be, if I had a band, if there's a band that I'd like to play, if I was a member of and playing live shows in, I think their shows would be fun as hell to play, and that'd probably be Metallica. To have that kind of career where you can play these massive stadiums and play these killer shows with heavy music, that would be fun. But when it comes to the actual music itself, I'd want to be in Sigur Rós.
Yeah, if it comes to like, it's hard. I mean, you have those like great vibes, like playing like these really heavy shows, like being like in like Korn or something like that. But of course, U2 has got to do some amazing
U2 is
stuff.
kind of the same thing as like,
yeah. But I would think like that would be so
Metallica with a better looking crowd.
That would be so fulfilling for me to be able to play. I would have loved to play with Alan Holdsworth. That would have been amazing to be able to do that.
I would have been scared to death to play with Alan Holdsworth.
Yeah.
So Kai says, what advice would you give for a beginner guitarist to get as good as you, if possible? Of course, it's always possible. Trust me. Only thing you can tell anybody that's studying any instrument really is, as long as you learn to enjoy the process, that's what's going to make you great. If you're not looking at people like me on YouTube and you're trying to match that and you're comparing yourself, if you look at your own self and you just get inspired, don't take players that are better than you as making you feel bad about yourself. Use this thing as inspiration, as what is possible. And as long as you learn to trust the process, that's what's going to make you good, because that's going to make you sit with a guitar all day and do your own thing. And that's the one key that every great guitar player has in the world. They absolutely love playing guitar, and they don't compare themselves to others. Yeah. They just
let it inspire you.
They just sit in a room and play. They just like the process of playing guitar, and they don't care about anything else.
And most people quit and
because they're comparing themselves to other people.
Make yourself special, make yourself different, and trust the process and keep going.
And learn to enjoy the process. That's the main thing. Is like
eventually you
learn so much stress on their.
We've been through this.
Sessions.
You know, we're like, you know, we have like, he has a YouTube presence now, but we're not like known musicians for like having, you know, our own music and all this kind of stuff. You know, but that doesn't mean that doesn't have to be eventually your goals and everything and what it does for you changes. And just going to sit down and play, I can feel it when I haven't been able to play, you know, and it's everything that's inside. And I've told people this all the time. I was like, you know, this is really for me more than anything. It's not to impress anybody. It's not to do anything. You know, I don't, but if you have that, if that's where it's coming from, then you're going to get a lot of satisfaction and joy out of playing for an entire lifetime if you just kind of have that perspective on it.
All right, we're going to end on this one. This question says, natural talent versus dedicated practice. Do some people have natural abilities and can get away with less practice, while others will never get good no matter how much they practice? What does the spectrum look like as an experienced teacher?
I think this kind of goes back to what we just talked about. Of course, there are different people that have, you know, people have different sort of intuitions, intelligence levels, whatever like that. But the greatest natural ability that you can have if you want to be a great instrumentalist at something is, you know, the ability to make an effort and work hard. You know, it's not necessarily that's what's hard for a lot of people. You don't understand, like learning an instrument and taking an instrument to a high level is like a lifetime to do it. It's a long journey. And but if you have that sort of ability to work hard, that's like the greatest natural ability to me for anything, is being able to do that.
To stay inspired and to that. So you have to think all walks of life. It doesn't matter if you're studying music or if you're a computer programmer or a doctor or a teacher or whatever. There's always people who are they just excel over other humans. So there's always going to be people who are just more intelligent, brighter. Their brains work better. I don't know what it is. So there's always going to be that element in everything you do. It's the people who are fortunate enough to have that brain ability, but then they also have the ability
to back it up with
with a lot of hard work, dedicated passion to something. Those are the ones that become like just the ones that we recognize today as the greatest of all time. It's a combination of the two. I think Eddie Van Halen says something about that. He says something like gift or something, whatever.
And this is also kind of where it can combine into, like you have different types of musicians. Like there's musicians.
But wait, if I had one that I was going to have, it would be the hardworking aspect. Because you're going to get much further than somebody because I taught a lot of students that are obviously naturally. You can tell they're just smart. They're just smarter people. Yeah. They just are. Their brains work better. It's true. You can see this from kids. You can tell a huge difference from kid to kid. And
but the passion and work ethic.
But the ones that have the best work ethic always become the best guitar players.
Exactly.
No matter. And some of those guys were pretty intelligent. Some of those guys were a little bit, not so much. But they became really good guitar players. But it's very rare to find somebody who does both.
Yeah, and what's also very rare, and I think this is kind of like we've had this kind of subject before, and I think it was a question that somebody asked in a different forum, and they were asking about like, technical ability against like feel, that kind of thing, like different levels. Like what do you think is, a lot of people might think is a great guitar player or drummer or something, is completely different from what someone else wants somebody to be able to play fast.
That'd be a good topic for a podcast.
Yeah. Well, fast and like a million notes, and somebody else is more into the people that can really like dig into it. Your Claptons, your David Gilmours, that kind of stuff. And I see that contrast, and you also see what's rare. And I remember talking to my wife when we were in that the Vi auctions, and I'm explaining to her about Steve Vai, and I was like, you got these people that are fantastically creative musicians, and And then you have these other people that are like incredible virtuoso instrumentalists. And Steve Vai, to me, was like the great combination of those two. Someone who's just like wickedly creative, almost where sometimes I'm like, okay, Steve, you kind of took that a little far.
Yeah.
But it's so much work in that realm to get that creative and be that open-minded and develop yourself in that way. And then at the same time, he backs it up with this unbelievable guitar technique. Yeah.
Technique routines.
And then he can produce it all and everything. So I was like, he was like the combination of something. Like you got these Rick Shreddy guitar players that, I'm just not into their music.
Yeah.
I don't like the music. I mean, you got people that are super creative, but
They
can't play an instrument hardly, you know? So I think that kind of thing, too, I don't know why we got on that tangent, but yeah, but that kind of thing has a different levels of what you think is great. Somebody else might not think is great.
Yeah. But I think that I want to have a podcast about the whole technique versus feel thing, because I got some things to say about that too. All right, guys. So I guess thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to keep cranking these things out. Give us some good ideas. Try to make them ideas that, aren't all guitar related. I feel like we get mostly like guitar related stuff.
Well, they're guitar players.
Well, I know. Yeah, that's right. But, more general music ideas. So,
yeah. So I can participate.
Yeah, come on. We got to participate and give some chat.
But I know a few about guitar. I grew up with a pretty decent guitar player, so
we'll see. All right. We'll see you guys again soon. All right.